Okay guys, so you saw the first part of the video, which was pretty nerve-wracking. These fittings that are on these, the air part of this plasma cutter are a real nuisance, and they're very poorly made. And not only are they poorly made, but they don't work. They tend to have all kinds of problems with them. Now, I'm not saying that if it's in a perfect situation they may work, but they're not working for me, and I'm not putting up with this. So what I did was I went down to the store and I bought two different types of systems for fixing this thing. So actually I bought a brake line system for air brakes, and I also bought a system for airlines, just, you know, regular like utility airlines. But regardless, this is what the brake line stuff looks like, and this is what the utility pipe looks like. Now this is more like this stuff here, okay? But what's more important is it's not so much that any of this tubing is bad, because the tubing isn't what's leaking. The fittings are leaking. So what I did was I bought a new air separator, the water separator, and I bought a new gauge, and I bought a new regulator. And the reason I bought that stuff is because I don't know, when I take this apart, I need to have something to work with. And if these things are so cheaply made that I can't get them apart, you know what I mean, that I can't work with them, then I've got to do something else. So I bought a water separator. It's actually a lot bigger than this one. I bought a mini valve and a mini gauge. But I'm going to try and see if I can't use these gauges first. But at least now, when I go to take them apart, I have something to work with. So besides this two different types of hoses that I bought, and that'll depend on, you know, the type of system that I work with. Down at Lowe's, I picked up this type of a fitting. Now this is a 1/4-inch male iron pipe by a 1/4-inch compression fitting. So the tubing that I bought will fit over this and inside of this, and I'm hoping that these fittings will fit inside of what's existing here. I would like to keep this compact by keeping the, you know, the water separator and this little, although this gauge doesn't, or this dial doesn't seem to be working, but at least the gauge does. Now I do have another dial I can put in here, you know, to or a valve for the, I can't keep forgetting the name of this, the valve to adjust the air pressure. But either way, now I have something to work with. So I bought a whole bunch of these fittings, a whole selection of them. But I also, when I was at Napa, looking at some brake line fittings, and the sad thing is Napa only had 1 or 2 fittings. You know, they never have what you really need to do a project. So it's kind of disappointed with that. Nonetheless, these fittings are pricey. They're like $3 and up. So at Napa, these fittings here, and that's actually a 1/4-inch by 1/4-inch pipe thread, yeah, or 1/4-inch push-on compression fitting. And they had these, which this is a simple fitting. We had these years ago, you know, the thread with the hose fitting. Same thing with this 90 with the hose fitting. So I only picked these up at Napa because, first of all, I don't have any of these in my stock here, so at least I have some. The guy explained to me what the numbers mean, and, you know, how I can order these in different sizes and configurations. But again, they're very pricey. You're looking at $3 so a piece. So just, you know, roughly going through here, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, you can see that it adds up really fast. You know how much money you're going to spend on this. Now, I'll be honest with you, altogether this morning, I spent $160 buying all the parts. I know I have enough stuff to redo this air system in here. I bought another water separator. I have, I think, 2 regulators, and I have another gauge. So I have everything I need. I'd rather use this stuff because it already fits in there. It looks nice, you know, when I cover it, it's covered. Because I may have to put my separator on the outside. I'm not sure how the gauge is going to fit. But either way, I'm going to attempt to fix this. So as I fix it, because of my, I'm not going to be able to make the whole video of fixing it. It's going to take me hours to fix this. What I will do is I'll show you whatever highlights I come up against. So the video from last night, I just want you to know, the previous video to what you're watching here, that first half an hour, was actually my first impressions, and I was very upset with this thing for not being simpler to fix. If it was a simple fix and I could have, you know, cut lines and put them in there, put a little smuts on them to make them stop, I'd have been happy with that. But not these cheap Chinese compression plastic fittings that don't even fit the pipe that they put on. So that was a little disgusting last night. It sort of got to me. But today's another day. We're going to look at this in another light, and as I go, I'll show you what I do with this thing. Okay guys, so one of the things that I wasn't sure of, let me see if I can zoom in here for you. Yeah, right there where the gauge is. So this fitting, let me just show you. This is the fitting that I just bought. Okay, now this is an all brass iron pipe to compression fitting. One of the things that had me a little leery was I didn't know whether these Chinese stuff would have national pipe threads on the ends of the gauges and stuff. So since that's a national pipe thread, I can only hope that the rest of this stuff is also going to be national pipe threads on this regulator. So for now, I'm going to be putting this on here, and you can see this is a much better all brass system that it has a little ferrule in it, as well as a flare fitting. So this should work really well to be able to keep this thing from leaking any air. It should be a lifelong thing. Now the other part of this, I was hoping to get some of these fittings excuse me, in 90s or 45s, because you can see how close to the board that's going to be. But even though it's plastic, this should not be heating up that much, so I should be able to come off of there with plastic, and you know, I need to come down and attach to this. It doesn't really matter if the plastic is even looped, just so that it all fits. So as of right now, I've got a fitting onto the gauge that I know is going to be a good fitting. Now we got to see what this one's like here, and I think I might take out the new mini gauge I bought just to see how well it would fit into this hole and stuff here. Okay guys, so I got the regulator out of there. Now I wasn't positive if this regulator was actually working or not, as far as, you know, adjusting the pressure, but because I'm not looking for a real great big variable of cutting. I mean, sheet metal or, you know, 3/8 inch, yes, there's a big difference in the two of them, but I think that this, I don't know, I think this regulator was working. So I'm going to put it back in there. Now the problem with this is I have another regulator. Now you see how that fits in there. Okay, that bolts in there good. You can see it from that side. The regulator that I got from Lowe's does not fit in this hole. Now that's not a big deal. It's a very small amount. I can probably take a grinder actually and grind a little bit of sheet metal out of here. You'll never even know it, and I can put the regulator in there. But I want to take this stuff apart and take a good look at this first. Apparently this is how these fittings are supposed to work. I know you can't really see inside there, but there's this little very tiny, and I don't even know if you can see how that thing is made. It's got like little teeth on it. It reminds you of an electric washer with the teeth on it to grab the ground. But apparently you slip this blue piece over top of the pipe first. Okay, let me just show you this. So there's this little blue piece here that comes in this thing, made out of plastic. Apparently you put that over the pipe first, then you slip this thing over this pipe, which is really freaking cheesy. I mean, come on. And then you slide that into there. This is supposed to grab the pipe and stop it from pulling out, and this has a little shoulder on it here that's supposed to grab the inside of this. It doesn't work. It's not big enough. It's not strong enough. It's not good enough. Okay? This might work on something like a flute or something that you're going to blow into, but not for, you know, something that's actually needing to stay together. So I'm not going to use these fittings. But again, I am totally surprised and happy to find out that the fittings that go in here are still National Pipe Thread fittings, which is, you know, partly a miracle. So I'm going to use this same regulator because it fits in the hole here. Not that I couldn't change it, I could, but let's face it, if the regulator works, I'll just take it back. If it doesn't, I have a quality fittings that I can take apart and put back together again without, you know, destroying something like this little plastic crap that's here. So let me just, I want to think about how I want to put this together, because I do need to, you know, go from like right here to right there. So that's, I don't think I have a 90 bend that I can fit in there. Let me see. Yeah, I do have one. Okay, so this ought to work for that. Alright, so take this back out. So, and I didn't put any tape on here yet. I'm just, you know, mocking this up. I don't know, maybe this doesn't fit. Well, if it fits, it's not a smooth fit. Yow. I don't know, maybe this 1/8 inch pipe fitting doesn't fit in there. Either way, that would have to come so that I could put a loop into this. I'm not liking the way this fits here. It doesn't look to me like it's fitting properly. These are the kind of things that make a person mad, you know, when it comes to stuff like this. When you go to put things together, that should work without an issue. Let me just, for the heck of it, let me just see how these, if this fits into the 1/4 inch side of this thing. Yeah, it feels like it'll fit in there, but I'm not liking this too much. Although I can try it, see what happens. It looks like it's only going to go in a thread or two. It doesn't, I don't know if they make these in a metric size, but fit on the gauge, okay, but these don't seem to be fitting too well. Alright, well, let me finish looking at what I have here so that I can put this together somehow. I don't know, maybe it's just the way that it's threading in there. Alright, so let me just keep looking at this thing until I decide what kind of fittings I want to put in here. Okay guys, so I'm taking you with me on this journey here, and I don't know how well this is going to come out, but we're going to do this one way or the other. Alright, so you see the hole I have here, right? Well, that hole did not fit, and I don't even know if this is the best kind of fitting to buy for this, but this is a mini regulator, and it's a cobalt. Yes, I got it at Lowe's, but it feels and looks a lot better than this one. The problem is this one has a different size opening for the hole, so this would not fit in there, okay? So what I did was I took the grinder that I used to sharpen saw blades, I put a cone on the top of that, and I just went around there a couple times because I want this to look like new when I'm done. So that worked. So as you can see, that's in there now. Much better size handle. This handle was really small in here. I guess it's for the Chinese fingers, but anyway, for me, this is a much better handle and regulator size, so I'm liking this. So anyway, we got that to fit in there by using the grinder, okay? So all I did was put a grinder, you can use a Dremel tool, whatever, and I just went around it a couple of times until this fit in there. So now we have that fitting in there, so we're pretty much going to say that we're using that cobalt fitting. So the next thing we have now, on one side, I want to just take this nut off here so I can look at this thing. On one side of the fitting, it's an 1/8 inch pipe threads. The other two, there's actually 2 1/8 inch, this one it's not tight either yet, and 2 1/4 inch. So I'd imagine that this goes to the gauge as well, but whatever. So right now I have this to go to the gauge. Now you can see that this fitting and this fitting, I'm hoping you can see that, let me zoom in there. This fitting and this fitting are the same type of hose fitting, okay? And that takes this stuff, which is a lot more pliable and a lot more flexible than this. I don't know why this hose, polyester hose, is so hard. It's very stiff and it doesn't want to really move around there right. But anyway, this fits in here, and this should work for me. 3/16, maybe it's a smaller one. But one, oh yeah, it's a smaller one. Hold on a second. Alright, this is the hose. This hose is, it says 0.170 inch ID, 1/4 inch OD. Okay, so this will fit over that and inside the fitting, and it'll fit that. So this milky tube is going to be for the gauge. Now how I'm going to put that on there yet, you know, with this thing looking straight up there, I'm not sure. I may have to turn this. I wish I could have got some of these with a 90 bend, but they didn't have any at Napa or at Lowe's. So the only thing they had was the kind with the serrated edge on it, you know, that you slip on, and that takes a different size hose. So also with the water separator now, this is going to work in here. This will fit. Let me back you up here. This will fit in here. Let me zoom you back. The problem with this is, like, you don't need to hold this with anything, because once you tighten this up there, you'll be tight against the metal, so that'll be okay. And the length of this, let me get the other one, the old separator. They're pretty much almost exactly alike, okay? This is a self-bleeder. It'll blow out by itself, or you can pull it open. I'm hoping that it's a self-bleeding. I mean, I believe this one was as well, but I'm not sure. But it's the same thing. So either way, this will fit in there. However, there's a little bit of a problem, like always. If you look at the pattern here, this corner is actually hitting a little bit of the fan down here, the fan shroud. The thing is that fan shroud that's sticking out there it's doing nothing. It's just like what you see here. It's just a piece of plastic sticking out. It doesn't do anything to the fitting. Let me get you off here. Or it doesn't do anything to the, let me see what we got here. Wow, what's on the camera? Alright, so anyway, you see how this is like rounded here? It's being held in there, but this is like rounded. It's just an edge plastic sticking out. Well, down here is the same thing. And that is holding this. Let's see. It would go like this. It's holding it away right here. Now, if you look at that, wait a minute, that's the wrong thing. This is what I want. I want the water separator. Sorry guys. If you, like I say, this plastic down here on the fan shroud is the issue. Well, if you look at this, right here is where that's hitting. Now, if you look at it all the way around, you can see that it's actually got, you know, a cut in there. So I can grind this little bit off of here, just enough to get it on there. Now let me just put you back on the stand for a minute, and I'll show you just how far off it is. It's not much. Just bear with me, guys. Okay, so either you're seeing where the gas goes, right? So this is the new water separator. The old water separator just fit in there, and you can see you can get at it. This one is slightly different because of the head of it, but it's a lot heavier than this one, and I don't know what to tell you if that means anything. But if you put it in like this, you see you're off there a little bit. I can't really get into those threads. However, when I look in here, and I don't know if I can get you in there. Let me see if I can. But if you look in there, hold on guys, this is hitting the corner of that fan shroud. So either the fan shroud goes or this goes, okay? Either one of them has to be sanded off a little bit or ground off a little bit. And I don't think it's a big deal to do it. I just think it has to be done. So I'm going to see if I can't grind the fan shroud off first, since that's just plastic there and this is metal. So I'll grind that off first right here and see if this will fit in there enough for me to set it into place. I'll be back. Okay guys, now it's been, I don't know, an hour or two till I figured all this stuff out. First of all, let me just say this. Underneath the inside here, that is some sort of a solenoid that works electrically to shut the air off to the gun, okay? Now, this doesn't leak, and I just put pressure on the end of the hose here that came with it into that, and it doesn't leak. Now, let me just say this about these blue little fittings that come from China. Let's see where that one is here. It has this little tab, and it has this cap, and inside of this is another blue fitting, and I'm not exactly sure what happens here, but here's the thing. This has to go over the hose, and this acts as a retainer on the hose to keep it from pulling out. The problem is, if they don't cut the hose straight and push the hose all the way in, that hose goes right to the very edge there. This end, if you look at that edge, you can see how thick that is. The hose comes all the way into there. The problem is the hose wasn't pushed all the way into there, okay, on some of the fittings, and that's why they were leaking. But also, this is a hard type of plastic, and there's no way to really put pressure on that, so once it leaks, it's not going to stop leaking, because it can adjust. You know, it's just too hard of plastic. You can even see that hole there is out of round, that brass hole. So anyway, I'm trying to eliminate these as much as I can, but here's my problem at the moment. The solenoid, the tube goes into the solenoid, comes out the other side, and comes out through the gun right there. Now that's actually a good brass fitting that's there, the one that's right there. There's nothing wrong with that fitting. They got that one right, okay? So that's a good fitting actually. I wish they were on the rest of them. But anyway, here's what I did. I put this type of a fitting, and I'm going to put brake line, black brake line that you would use on a truck, into this. And I'm going to coil it around and bring it into the regulator. Okay, that's just for the gauge. That's just going to go from there to the gauge, give me some air pressure, you know, reading. On this side, and on this side of the air here, I'm going to run a black air line, And I found that that air hose does not necessarily have to have this same kind of a fitting here sticking out. If you have a ferrule and a brass fitting on there, it will keep that air line in there, that black air hose, because it's sort of rigid stuff and it's tough. And I put it in just hand tight and I could not pull it out. So I'm gonna, use that. On the other side, now this is on the ingoing side of the regulator, okay? So you got the gauge to gauge. That's the same fitting. From here back to the air separator or water separator, I'm going to put that in there, and that's going to hook up to that with that black hose. Now on the opposite side here, on the outgoing side of the regulator, the problem is I don't want to have to take this apart right here because it doesn't leak and I tested it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to warm up the end of this hose when the time comes, and I'm going to slip it onto here. I found out that that hose will fit really tight on there if you just warm it up a little bit, and I can push that on. Okay, so what will happen is this thing's going to sit sort of like this in here, and then I'm going to hook it up that way. Now if these air fittings should go, I'm pretty sure that down inside there, okay, where this curve is, and I'll show you what one of those look like. They look like this. Okay, this is where that blue piece goes, and they're just crappily made. But anyway, this is a pipe thread. So this is a pipe thread going into that solenoid that's underneath there. Okay, so if I do get any problems with it, I can unbolt that solenoid from the bottom, and then I'm going to have to do something to hook up from there to the opposite side. But for right now, I don't have any more 90-degree fittings. That's the problem here. I got to get some somewhere, and Lowe's didn't have any. They had one. Napa didn't have any except for one, and I needed actually more than one. So I'm using these furled fittings with the black hose to go through here. And like I say, I ground that off. This fits in there good. I also ground this whole little bit here up to get it so the threads would thread into the water separator there a little bit easier. So that fits. I ground this so that the control regulator would fit through that, so that all fits. So everything's going to fit, and it's going to look just like it did when it was new, except it's going to have bigger, bulkier parts and better pipe fittings. So that's how I did this, or that's how I'm going to do this. So I'll put it all together then, now that I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put Teflon tape on everything, and then I'll put it together. And I'll get back to you and show you what it looks like when it's together and how it works. Okay guys, so the water separator is mounted and tight, and all the Teflon tape's on that I need on that. The regulator is mounted, and the way I have it there I think is going to be about the best way. This line used to come up around and over top of these wires, but I'm going to take this line after I heat it up and I'm going to put it in like this, and then I'm going to just take it and push it up against inside there somewhere where I can hold it with some ties or something and put it on like that. And then I'll just hook the other two pieces up last, and then we'll see what happens here. Guys, in case you don't know what I'm talking about when I say a ferrule, this is a ferrule, this little brass piece. What happens is it's tapered on both sides. The nut has a small taper on it, and so does the inside of this fitting have a taper on it. So when you push the pipe then into the other two, when you push the pipe into the fitting, and you want to hold it in there so it doesn't come out, and then you tighten this ferrule up on here, it compresses the pipe and wraps around it tightens against the pipe and also presses against the sides of the brass on both sides to keep it from leaking. Now, I've never tried this with this black tubing before, but I got to tell you that when I put it in here before, I had tightened this up on another fitting, and I tried to get it off of there, and believe me, it would not come off. It was tight in there. So I mean, that's not moving at all, so I'm going to let that like that. I'm going to tighten this other side up here so you can see how I have this thing. Let me just try and get the camera back a little bit. I think that should be good. So I'm going to tighten this up now. I have this pushed in there tight. You want to make sure you keep the pipe pushed in there with your fingers. You don't have to go crazy tightening it. That's one of the reasons I'm using an adjustable. It won't let me tighten it too tight. Okay, so that's good. So now we have the pipe coming to the regulator. All we need is to go from the regulator to the gauge. And then this goes from the solenoid that stops the air from going to the gun. So what I want to do with that is I just want to, let me see if I'm against anything. I want to pull this just against this case so that it's in there a little bit snug. Okay, that should be good. It's not hurting anything. It hasn't changed anything. But these fittings are much nicer than what we had there before. So now I got to use another piece of that black pipes, and this is what it looks like. And I got this at Napa. I believe the outside, I believe the OD of this is 1/4 inch, and the ID is a slightly smaller size. You know, I must have 15 tape measures. You think I can find one? Alright, well, I'm not going to worry about that for the moment. Yeah, so I got to go into this fitting. And you can see this is aiming right at the board there. Now this board can move a little bit if you have to, but this pipe can also flex pretty well. You can see, you can turn it almost on a 90 there and it's not collapsing. So that's probably something that's going to help me here. You got to wet this a little bit. You can put oil on it if you want to. I usually spit on this stuff. So I'm just making this a little wet so it'll go inside this pipe a little bit easier. I'm just pushing on it here to get it to go together. Now I'm going to be cutting this so the furrow would actually go on first, but I have a loose end there so it doesn't really matter. But I do want to get this on. Yeah, boy, that's snug. I don't really want to hit this if I don't have to because it'll goof it up. Although hitting it on the wood's not as bad as hitting it on the metal. Alright, so I need a real short bend there, something like this, and I'll figure out what I need to do to get it around to this piece here. So let me do that and I'll fool with it and then I'll get back. Alright, the one thing I wanted to show you guys is this is how far in that tube should go. It should almost touch the end of that ferrule, or I mean the end of that flare, and the ferrule's inside the nut here. So this just, you don't want to push it up too far, but you want to make sure that the ferrule's onto the, this ferrule will pull onto that flared piece that's inside there. So you want to pull that up on there. Kind of hard to get it up, or get this up there, but yeah, so then pull that up and I'm going to hook this onto here. Okay guys, so there we have it hooked up. Now because of the way the rigidity of the hose and everything, even though the gauge is right there, I put this long piece of hose on here to go around just to make a nice transition. Doesn't have any pressure on that board there or anything, but I've got a nice fitting, both of them. This thing here should be good. I think I can probably leave this hang here, although if I tied that onto there, it'll help keep it tight. I think I may put a tie on there real quick. But anyway, it's all hooked together, and I'm about to try it. So I'm going to hook up the air to it and see what happens. Okay guys, so I hooked up the air line and there's a little leak. And you won't believe where it is. It actually was a stupid thing. On the bottom of the valve here, there's a hex head that I didn't tighten, and you just need an Allen wrench to tighten it. So I'll tighten that and then I should be good. Okay guys, so when now my air fitting is still leaking here because these chucks on my hoses are wore out from using them so much. But when I push it together there's no air leaking. And not only that, but I get a really responsive thing to the gauge here, which I wasn't getting before with the other gauge. So I think that this is a lot better regulator. So anyway, I do need to get another hose. What I'm going to do is get a hose and put it onto the air compressor. I'll run it from the air compressor, and I'm going to put this plasma cutter somewhere right over here by the plug. Right behind this tank. You can't see it, but that's where the 50 amp plug is. So I'll probably mount the plasma cutter there and just work with it right here. I don't need to take it anywhere or have it movable really. I just need it to be able to reach within, a couple feet of the vehicle or whatever. Or if I have to take it off, I easily can. But what I'm going to do is we're going to try this now. So let me take a couple minutes here and get set up. I'm going to put the cover back on because I know it's not leaking inside there, and then we're going to try cutting with it. Guys, I was going to put the cover on, and I am going to, but I think I'm just going to do a real slow movement here for you. So I'll start from the back end here where the air comes in. Alright, so all you need to do is have one of these to put into the fitting. This brass fitting comes with the plasma cutter from Jegs. But what I had to do in order to replace this separator here with this heavier separator and put a better fitting in it was to take and grind this corner off of the fan, but down here. That's all I had to do to get that fitting, or to get this from Walmart, or not Walmart, but Cobalt in there. So let me show you. This is the mini air filter. There's the part number. Got it at Lowe's. Okay, so that's what you're looking at there. Alright, so let me just get some of these fittings out of the way. So then after I had to grind the corner of this a little bit to be able to get the fitting in, which I showed you in the previous video. Just with a grinder, I ground that out a little bit. Put this against there, tightened it up. Put this type of fitting in that slips into this. Put that together, this together, okay? And you can see what I did there with the different fittings. I heated this hose very little bit to get it to push on there, and I used a tie to hold it, only because I didn't want to have to do anything to this solenoid back in here, because I don't want to break anything on that because I couldn't find a solenoid anywhere. So it's not leaking, and that's good, so we're going to see what happens here. But that's what you got there. Well, YouTube, there you go. Nobody would know the difference. I just had a visitor, so I don't know if what I was saying. I probably forgot what I was saying. But anyway, for all intents and purposes, nobody would know that it's any different than it was before from Jegs. And I just cut a piece of 3/8, I believe that is. So I'll cut another piece now that you're here. Or now that I have the camera on, I should say. because my neighbor come up, he needed some plain white oak, or plain red oak. So let me get things set up here, and we'll see how it cuts. I don't know if you can hear the air leak in there, but that's my fitting. Yeah, the inside of the thing is perfect. There's nothing leaking anywhere. So I'm going to cut these two pieces. This is 3/16 plate, and then I have a piece of aluminum here I'll cut. This is actually thicker than stuff that I'll ever cut. I usually cut sheet metal. This is aluminum. That's me moving because I'm a little shaky from being out here all day. But it cut, and it cuts very well. All I gotta do is get used to it, and I will. Yeah, so $280 plus, I don't know. I didn't use all those fittings. I'll show you the fittings that are still laying here. I just grabbed a whole bunch of them to bring home. So I'll be taking all that stuff back. That's in, maybe I might keep 2 of each thing, or 3, just in case. But the fittings that I used were this Pro-Line, if you want to see, there you go. Pro-Line 1.25 inch compression by 1/4 inch mail iron pipe. And then you have to buy that 1/4 inch OD black pipe to go with it. Now these I got at Lowe's. The black pipe I got at Napa. Just so you know. Anyway, there's a number of ways you can do that. That's certainly not the only kind of pipe fittings there are. And everybody has their own system nowadays. And some of the systems are good and some of them just aren't any good. So guys, thanks for watching this video. And if you're Chinese, I have nothing against you personally, but I've got to tell you, you guys got to start doing some quality control. Please. Have a good one. Watch your eyes. As far as I'm concerned, that's going to do good. I'm going to try it on sheet metal quick. So guys, the next thing up on the list is to finish the tractor. So just to show you, I got, there's a little funny story here with this. The other day I got an email from the post office saying that this package from Parts Tree was there. Okay, so I didn't go in that day, but I went in 2 days later, and I had gotten another email saying that the thing from Parts Tree is here, but that was from the post office. But Parts Tree themselves sent me an email saying that it was delivered. Now, delivered could mean the post office box, but it usually means that the person has received it because you had a sign for it. Well, I'm looking and looking, and I call the post office. It's not there. Nobody knows where it is. Here, Sally took and wrapped it up and had it underneath the Christmas tree. She didn't know whose it was, so she just wrapped it. But anyway, it's all the bearings, and this is a gasket here that I needed for the back of that bevel gearbox. But all the bearings and stuff, everything came. And here, what do you see, guys? Look at the good part. It's all Briggs & Stratton, and it's all made in the USA. I'm surprised at that. That means I've got good bearings and I've got good seals, and everything should work good when I go to put it back together. We'll see. So that's my next project, so you can stay tuned for that if you're interested. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Christmas. Oh guys, I just want to tell you that if you stayed through the torture of that whole video, let me just say this to you. Having taught college classes, it's very difficult to make a video and make it, interesting without a whole lot of editing when you're working with something that you don't know what the outcome's going to be. It's different when you're talking about a subject that you know. But anyway, I just figured I'd show you this. This is the actual regulator that I had used. Now there's a secondary one in here. I'm just going to hang on to it. That's the part number from Cobalt Lowe's. That's the water separator, okay, the air filter. So that's the part number. In order to hook up the gauge now we're talking about the new regulator, the Cobalt regulator, to the existing gauge, or actually a new gauge. If you put a new gauge in, you need these two fittings. You need a 1/4 inch compression by 1/8 inch inside diameter female iron pipe. Now that goes over top of the gauge threads. Okay, so that's the part number there. This is all from Lowe's. We're going to come over here. This is the part number for the other end that goes into the regulator. Okay, so that gets you the gauge hooked up, those two parts. So then the other thing you need is 3 of these. Now I have 3 empty bags here, but they're all the same. That's the part number. And this is the name of the fitting. Now, the problem with these is they're straight, but you could still use them. But if I was you, I would buy them on a bend. In other words, you want a 90 bend in this same configuration, 3 of them. Okay? But worst case scenario, you could go with that part number, but I wouldn't. I would go with the 90 bend for these 3 fittings. So you have these 2 for the gauge. Those are fine as they are. But these 3, you should really go with a 90 bend. And this is just what the fitting looks like. But if it was a 90 rather than straight, you'd be in good shape. And then for the pipe, this tubing, like I say, just bear with me. I bought this tubing over at Napa, and the tubing is 1/4 inch on the outside, and I believe it's 170 on the inside. So that's the products that I needed. I hope I got that good for you there. In lieu of these, I'll just show you something. Now I wasn't able to find these in a 90 bend, but I do have these actually in stock here that are on a 90. And all this is a 1/4 inch pipe fitting, okay, with a ferrule in it and the cap, the nut. That will fit on this black pipe, and it fits and works fine. So you don't even need the actual little piece there that comes with this for the compression or the flare fitting, because this is a compression fitting by itself and it works good with this black pipe. So I would recommend that you get, let's see, two of these in the 90s, two 90s, 1/4 inch by this 1/4 inch OD pipe fitting, and then get one straight one, okay, to go into the regulator or into the water separator. And then to do the gauge, you can use these two that I have here. Okay guys, so in winding this up, this is the website, Jegs, this is the plasma cutter that I got, and that was the price. Do I think it was worth that much? I absolutely do. I think it was worth that, and not only that, I think it was worth the trouble I went through to fix it. The mask being broke, I didn't care about because I already threw it away. The wire brush they send, I threw away, and you know, I threw away the other parts that I didn't think were suitable. Just to let you know, but I do think that the electronics, and I'm praying that Jegs put some thought into this, you know, knowing that it was only the airlines that could be fixed to make a good plasma cutter. So we'll see what happens. I'll let you know in the future. Have a good one, guys.